And welcome back. It is Sunday evening, which means the Vortex F1 Racing League Gold Series is continuing. We started once again last week in Texas. We weren't quite there to see it, but today we're in Silverstone. And it's Ben Harvey that we watch as cars find their ways out of the garages. It's qualifying. 17.5 minutes for drivers to show where they belong on the starting grid. Suzuki, as usual, the first one out through the village section now. The special 2025 Brazil Williams livery for him. Taking it nice and slow on the outlap, maintaining tyres, and hopefully maintaining some pace for when he reaches the fast lap, weaving on the straights just to get some temperature in. But as you can see, lifting for these corners, nice and gently. He will be the first one to do a lap that will follow him through it. Through the Vale chicane now. And here it is, the timing line. Which means the lap's officially begun. Turn 1 and 2. Throttle pinned to the floor. Using the curves for rotation, and now it's the village section. Fast on the brakes. Holding it to the right for the entry to turn 4. A little bit of a slide on the exit. But overall good. Again, quick stab of the brakes for Brooklands. Bit deep there. Compromised the entry into Luffield. On throttle nice and early. A very good exit into Woodcote. Throttle pinned to the floor with just a little bit of a downshift for Cops. A purple sector 1, of course, first one to do it. Now Maggots and Beckett's. The fastest speed corners on the circuit. Well maintained through Chapel. It's very easy to go wide there, bottom out the floor, and lose control. It's nice and consistent here. Stowe now, clipping the inside curb. Now it's Vale once again. It started the lap. And it's how it ends. The first lap of the session at 25.5. A beautiful first lap from Suzuki. However, he's far from the only one, as Ken Cheese with a 26.2 goes P2, Kong with a 26.4, Fade with a 26.5 goes P4. Ben Harvey's going through Stowe now, the Ferrari. A little bit wide on the exit, had to correct for that. Rory goes P2 with a 26.0. And forfeit P6 with a 26.6. Ben Harvey, 27.6, goes P7. Humero in the Haas goes P7 with a 27.5. Now Magnus Howe in the McLaren, coming through Vale. Bit deep in the first half. It seems he's done given up on this lap and is going for a new one here. So it's a 140. That's not quite representative of his best time. Pesh going through Stowe. Bit wide on exit again. Dan Richards goes P7 with a 26.9. And Pesh goes P6 with a 26.5. Onions Please, usually a front runner. Currently P13, having not done a lap. Well controlled on the exit of Stowe this time. 2 yellow sectors though, not quite up where he'd usually be. Very, very far across the curb in turn 16. And that's P2, with the only other time to reach the sub 1 minute 26s. Who Am I? Exactly ties Onion's time to go P3. So Onions and Who Am I have a fight between them today. And it's them on in-laps now. We'll keep an eye on Magnus, whose first lap was an aborted attempt. But this time is where it really counts. It's a 1:26.5 to get P9 for the second McLaren. And of course, as you'd expect, Suzuki. Always one to go out early. Has already started leaving the pits. And there's Williams, currently on pole. He's going again. Again, nice and gentle through the outlap. The only one on track right now that isn't on an in-lap. Unless we take a look at maybe Jack, who has yet to do a time. Finding his way through Sector 1 now. But he's moderating the throttle. It looks like a nice, calm, maybe aborted lap for him. Same seems to be happening for Humero too. Pokey and Eliminator though. Might not be taking it so relaxed as Suzuki has started his lap, but in P16 and 17 are two drivers who've yet to be one of their own. It looks like the Aston Martin's pushing. Only 4/10 behind Suzuki through Sector 1. Hoki 10 on debut for the league today. Unless he was here last week. In which case, it's his second time around. Downshift through Cops. Maintains a good line through Maggots and Beckett's. Downshift to 6th, then to 5th for Chapel. It's very wide though. A big lift on the throttle. You can see in the telemetry. At least you can now. And for Hoki, currently last on the grid, but it goes up to P12 with a 27 for him. Suzuki now, coming through Sector 3. It was a purple Sector 1, a yellow Sector 2. But it can be improved, and it does indeed. Only by a few hundredths, but it's a 25.5. A new provisional pole time for Suzuki. Rory. A very similar approach to Cops. The downshift, but keep the throttle pinned. Maggots and Beckett's now Chapel. DRS now. A personal best sector 2 for the Ferrari. Controlled through Stowe. Is improvement on the table for him? It is not. It was very, very close. But just sticks with a 26. Now, who am I? Currently P3, exactly tied, down to the millisecond, with onions, please. It does not get closer. Ken Cheese with a 26.1 goes to P5. Who am I? Does a personal best sector 1. It's all about if you can beat your own time. There's the Williams ahead. Moves out of the way, avoiding giving him any dirty air. Well and controlled through Chapel, and it's only less than a 10th behind Suzuki out of Sector 2. A beautiful lap so far from Who Am I? Well held through Stowe. And now it's Vale. Makes or breaks laps. If you go too far on the curb, you'll lose your momentum. He's got the battery to burn. And over the line, it's a new pole by Who Am I? 25.4. Out of third place comes the Red Bull. In the beautifully white and red Suzuka livery from the start of last year's season. Now it's up to Onions, please. The driver who was exactly tying him on time. Can he get near? That is a no. He improved by around a 10th, but it's not enough as Magnus Hall takes his third spot. One McLaren ahead of another. Kong comes into the pits. What about Humero? As a personal best sector 1 for him. The Haas driver currently on a 27.2. Prepares for Maggots and Beckett's. Plenty of curb. And now Chapel. Well held for him. Personal best sector 2 as well. Now through Vale. Comes the Haas driver and it's P12 for him now with a 26.9. And Suzuki, as usual, back out as soon as possible. Almost 4 minutes to go. Does he mind? Not at all. As you can see, maintaining the tyres, getting ready to fully push in just any second. A nice and wide line for the final corner of the Vale chicane. Now Club, and across the line he comes. 310 kilometers an hour before turn 1. Now turn 3. Quick stab of the brakes, very quickly off. Setting up the exit for Aintree. Now the back straight. Into Sector 1, it is faster than Who Am I? A tenth so, in fact. Out of left field. Now Woodcock. Nearly 200 miles an hour before cops. Flat out through this entire section. Before we reach Chapel. A swift turn in. And it's still faster than Who Am I by a tenth. It's a purple Sector 2, best of anyone so far. Almost too wide at Stowe. Pushing the track limits to their very, very best. Now through Vale. He's all but done it. Across the line, it is pole once again. For Sly Suzuki, 25.414. 2.5 hundredths in it. And that's him done for the session. No more new tyres for him. And it's all down to Who Am I? The Red Bull who fought so hard for his pole time, only to see it beat him. With one last chance. Rory, in the meantime, has gone 1,000th of a second behind Magnus Howe, P4. And he's just started his final attempt, but that's a slide out of turn 4. Significant loss of traction there. Means the exit will be compromised. And as you can see, 1.6 seconds lost in Sector 1 alone. Magnus Howe just came out of the same place. And is 2/10 slower than Suzuki. Loses it under braking for Brooklands. Goes deep. And that's deep again in Luffield. The pressure getting to so many drivers now. Onions managing to hit the curb correctly. Tight line for Luffield. Quickly on throttle again, burning the battery. Down to 40%. 35. Before we reach cops, downshifts early. Burns once again, we're on 30%. Now Maggots and Beckett, Suzuki retires. Chapel for Onions, throwing the car in. Every risk taken, none left on the table, but it's still 3/10 too slow. Takes the slipstream from his teammate McLaren down the Hamilton straight. But is it enough for the Papaya driver who's fought so hard? As Who Am I comes through the middle sector, Onions does not improve. Rory and Magnus take to the pits. Onions and Ken Cheese take the checkered flag. And Who Am I is left with a sector standing between him and his wanted pole position. Now less than one sector, 3 turns, one left-hander, and it's all too much. He slides under braking for the Vale chicane. And any image of perfection in that lap is just about gone. It's P2 for him. And that one mistake means Suzuki is our pole sitter today. Fade into the pits. Ben Harvey through Vale now. P14 giving himself one last chance. It doesn't quite go how he'd expect. So he stays as is, and it's Suzuki that will lead us away for the British Grand Prix. So our starting order for the British Grand Prix. Suzuki and Who Am I on the front row into turn 1. That'll be a close one. Magnus, Hal and Rory in 3rd and 4th. Onions and Ken Cheese lining up on the 3rd row. Kong in 7th. Fade in 8th. Dan Richards down in 9th with the Sauber. Pesh just behind him in the same car. Hokey in 11th with the Aston Martin. 4th at 12th. El Humero 13th. Ben Harvey 14th. Eliminator 15th and Jack 16th. Followed by Daryl, who did not quite set a lap this time around, but has every opportunity to make it back. And now we'll have just a few minutes of downtime. While we wait for the drivers to prepare, choose their strategies, maybe adjust their setups. And that is when we'll go ahead. And it's away we go. The red lights go. And it's Suzuki and Who Am I leading us off the grid as expected. Suzuki, though, with a much better run. Some cars off at the back. Magnus, Hal and Onions maintain their line into turn 3. It's Magnus taking the inside, protecting his position. Maybe even having a look at Who Am I. It's Onions side by side with him, though. The two McLarens going at it through Aintree. Bit of wheel locking, but it's to be expected. Kong makes his way past Ken Cheese. And Rory has a front row seat to the action. The two McLarens go wide. Onions stuck at the inside of Luffield. Rory goes a little bit wide. Wiggles from everybody on the exit. Too eager on the throttle. Onions goes through. But it's Rory not giving up his place, but does indeed do so into Cox. Backs out just a little bit. And it's still side by side for the two McLarens, wheel bumping into Maggots and Beckett's. Onions, though, hit the grass in Chapel. Won't be doing him any favours. We'll take a look quickly at the tyres. Everybody's gone for the mediums. And through goes Rory on Magnus, holding the inside. But the Ferrari goes through. And Magnus just takes a little bit too much of the curb there to go for the switchback. And it's Suzuki still leading us away. Ben Harvey into the pits, I believe, with some wing damage after an incident at the start. Magnus, Hal and Kong now going at it. Kong dives to the inside of turn 4. Magnus goes for the switchback, doesn't quite get it. With DRS though, but Kong also benefits from that, doesn't quite see a window. And Who Am I is forced to stay behind while the grid finds itself so tightly packed. Through the DRS zones, the grid calms down just a little bit, people reaching their comfort zones. Daryl, however, not seeing the appeal in being calm, down the inside of Stowe, switches just last minute, but off the track goes Forfeit. The Mercedes and the V-Carb side by side through the Vale chicane now. The V-Carb round the outside, that's Daryl, makes his move. P13 it is for him. However, still going side by side, Forfeit not so happy with having lost that position. Into turn 3, the Mercedes tries to send it down the inside, doesn't quite get it. Jack now taking advantage of the fighting, sees the Mercedes goes deep. Goes for a better exit. And Humero seeing Jack overcommit round the outside of Brooklands, but it's just a bit too deep for the Haas. No, he's got the inside line of Luffield. Can he carry the speed? The answer is no. The Red Bull stays ahead, but only just. Slipstream looks tempting. Into the inside goes Humero through Cops. Very, very aggressive from the drivers at the back here. Fighting with everything they've got. Jack has 2 corner cutting warnings. 1 more and that's a penalty. Kong on the back of Rory. Still within DRS. It becomes a bit of a tyre management game now. With 4 laps in, if you've done too much to your tyres, you'll see no success. The 2 Saubers stay as they started in P9 and 10. Humero not giving up on his goal of getting past Jack. A little bit of a slide on the exit of Luffield. But up at the front, a fight between our 2 attempted pole sitters remains close. DRS keeps Who Am I hanging on. Dan Richards and Fade swap around on the exit of Vale. Dan Richards finding his way through. His first move of the race up to P8 for the Sauber. His teammate very close behind. Dan Richards is in a sticky situation now, though. No DRS means Fade closes in. Pesh and Hoki finding themselves having a scrap. Hoki went for the inside line. A little bit of a switchback on the exit, but it's Pesh with a better exit there. Fade now, gaining down the straights. Had looked to the inside, but gave it up. Off the track in Cox, but luckily no warning for him. You can see him struggling with initial rotation. I think we're seeing a bit of a downforce difference here between the two. Dan Richards goes off at Chapel, gets his first warning. Both drivers now benefiting from the drag reduction system. And Hoki, burning the battery close to within a tenth, goes very wide at Stowe. The dirty air tripping him up just a little bit. Jack and Humero swap around finally. The Haas making his way through. Eliminator around Hoki now, as Hoki had a little bit of a slide. And Humero is off at Stowe. A little bit of an accident. Under braking for the Vale chicane, I mean. There he goes. But the grid continues. Magnus Hall flies past onto the inside of Brooklands on Kong. P5 for the McLaren. Kong, though, not giving up his prized possession, his position, so easily. He hangs on to the back through Maggots and Beckett. It's very wide in Beckett's, though. Compromises Chapel. That creates a 7/10 gap between the two of them onto the Hamilton straight. Dan Richards closing in on Ken Cheese. Wide in Stowe. It's a very common theme here. Struggling with braking as many people. Who am I? First one into the pits after 5-6 laps on the medium tyres. He's saying goodbye to this set. Putting on a set of hearts. The Red Bull going straight from P2 all the way down to what he can expect to be around P15. Dan Richards follows him through. The Sauber was around the midfield. And Humero finds himself with a 10-second penalty for corner cutting. And who am I now? P14 for the Red Bull driver, who was so much further up before. And Darrell, in the meantime, grows ever closer to Eliminator. With 2 tenths in it, Darrell has to back out a little bit through Maggots and Beckett's. The dirty air gets you otherwise. Yellow flag temporarily, but we've got away with it. And it's now Darrell with DRS. Battery to burn, Eliminator's charging. And the move is done into Stowe. Eliminator's thrown off by the dirty air too, as Onions comes into the pit lane. Suzuki, our pole sitter, has stuck it out and has a 2.6 second lead on Rory. As Hoki had a look to the inside of Eliminator, it stays as is for now. And Ken Cheese coming out of the pits in P13. We have a retirement. Humero, after his incident at the Vale chicane, has let it go. Pokey now finally makes his move. Eliminator makes a little bit of contact going for the switchback. Both into the pits they go. Ben Arvey, though, gets a 3-second penalty, the first one for track limits. Eliminator now pits coming out in P15. Suzuki once again has left it. The one stop, his favoured option. And into the pits, finally, comes Suzuki. The Williams giving it up, giving up these mediums, but most likely only expecting one pit stop, where his rival, Who Am I, might just be expecting two. So, after all of these pits have happened, Who Am I is in net P1 once Daryl and Rory have pitted. But of course, he will have one more pit stop to do. Pesh and Magnus Howe, though, side by side. It's ultimately Pesh. Never mind, they're still side by side, down the old pitch straight. And it's Pesh, there we go, on the mediums. That comes out ahead before Maggots and Beckett's. Magnus Howe, not so happy to stay behind. As Rory into the pits. Means Who Am I is now our race leader. Or it soon will be, at least. Through he goes, Who Am I was P2. And with pit strategies as temporarily P1. This is his chance to stretch out his advantage. Consistent laps now could just give him the win. Rory finding himself under a bit of pressure from Kong on softer tyres. Kong, though, hits the gravel there on the exit of Luffield, compromising his gain. It's now 1 second, the gap between him and Rory. They'll have to bring that down just a little bit for the DRS effect to apply. Down the inside, Goes Magnus Howell on Pesh. A beautiful move from him there. The McLaren just finding his way through. Going for every gap that exists. Dan Richards, one of the first to pit alongside Who Am I? Now following Fade. Fade charging through the fast sections, very aware that Dan Richards cannot get past sometimes. Some part of the track, simply impossible. Magnus, though, trying to find any way through. He's already got past Ken Cheese and around the outside of Dan Richards. He tries, but Stowe is not the place to make it happen. Fakes the inside of Vale. Dan Richards goes wide, compromises his exit through Club. Some great racing here from Magnus. And Dan Richards' exit is simply not as good. Trying to find his way past goes the McLaren. A little bit of wheel banging round the outside of turn 3. He cuts back for the switchback. He's now on the outside of 4. Can he carry the speed? Because DRS is now, they both have it. But with battery to the inside goes Magnus. Braking a little bit later, loses control just a tiny bit. They both stay on track. But it's the McLaren round the outside of Luffield that finally holds on to his position. Magnus Howell now P7. Dan Richards, having spent too long fighting for Fade, now is down to P9. Ken Cheese following Magnus Howell through. And as we reach the halfway point in this race, the pit strategies are not over. In fact, far from it. Because we are yet to see if the two-stop can triumph. Just shy of the points positions, however. It's a fight. Going on not for points, but for pure racing ability. Jack, the Red Bull, he's been fighting every single opportunity this race. Magnus, up in 7th, gets a 3-second penalty. He's pushed it just a little bit too hard, and that will come off his end of race time. A yellow flag as Kong finds himself having an issue. He's rebuilding his speed, but Fade might just try go past. The two cars, Magnus and Fade, wheel bumping in Stowe. Fade goes wide, Kong comes into the pits, and Magnus takes P5. But Who Am I? There we go, comes in for the second pit stop. Suzuki's expected to stay out the whole time, but Who Am I has gone for a second set of hard tyres. Where will this put him? Down in P8 is P9, goes the Red Bull. He doesn't quite find his way past forfeit. on the pit exit. But with newer tyres, he should find his way through pretty easily. Pulls alongside Forfeit and into turn 6. That's not a difficult one. He has to worry about not getting stuck in this traffic for too long though, as that will compromise the advantage he's got from his new tyres. He has to get past Hoki as soon as possible. Find himself some clean air and stick with it. There he goes. Well dispatched by Who Am I? And as Dan Richards and Fade pit from ahead, this will give him a few seconds of room to stretch out his legs. And as Suzuki has a nice peaceful time up front, Onions flies past Eliminator. The new tyre effect doing him wonders. Doesn't stop at Eliminator though, as he's gaining on Forfeit. And out of Chapel, using everything left in the ERS tank. Round the outside of Stowe he goes. He gives him the space, but does not give him any mercy. Onions up to P7. Round the outside of Hoki now into Aintree. Not a conventional place to make a move. Alas, he does it anyway. As we'd expect, the newer tyres absolutely flying. And still gaining on Who Am I now, as Dan Richards gets a penalty of his own down in P15. Hoki comes into the pits, as does Ken Cheese. Who Am I up to 4th. Now he's got the clean air. The question is, has he got the pace? Because there's 8 laps left to go. If I count correctly, around 20 seconds between him and Suzuki. Was the 2-stop the wrong idea? It may just have been. But look at the deltas. I don't quite know if it's going down enough. But the midfield fight is never over. Hesh gets a 3-second penalty now. We're reaching the point where warnings have accumulated. Eliminator into the pits. A 2-stop for him as well. Seeing 2 stoppers start to fall now. Daryl has now caught up to Jack. Jack, of course, started much further back than this. And is currently in P6. Who am I? Now P3. Has 15.5 seconds between him and Rory. Rory and Suzuki, the 2 front runners who have gone for the 1-stop with 6 laps to go. Starting to make me doubt. If this was the right idea. The delta doesn't really fall. Daryl with DRS has his chance now. Doesn't quite have the pace. At least down that straight to reach P6. The yellow flag as Ferrari comes into the pits. It's Ben Harvey. I believe it is indeed. As forfeit gets a 3-second penalty. Jack will be grateful for that if he can just gain 1/10. That's his position now. And Rory is now gaining on Suzuki. We have 5 laps left to go in the fight that started between Suzuki and Who Am I has suddenly got a Ferrari involved. Fade so close to Magnus. Magnus now takes the fastest lap. Of course, newest tyres of the bunch. It'll be very difficult to find your way through on him. And similarly, Daryl having a very difficult time making any move. Rory, though, has just about reached DRS. There we go. He's 2nd place, now within a second. And every single DRS zone will see him move just that bit closer. And into the pits comes Suzuki. This is not what I expected. He looked like he was going for a 2-stop. And now, towards the end, it has to be a 2-stop for him. He looked like he was going for a 1-stop. But he can't keep these tyres going. They're going to puncture. Is Rory going to have the same issue? Because if so, Who Am I may just have made the right decision. It looked impossible. Suzuki has gone to hard tyres with 4 laps left to go. It's obvious he didn't want to do this. Now you have to wonder, how are Rory's tyres doing? Looking very closely now. They look okay, but do they feel okay? It's the real question. And into Stowe, you can see him taking it gently. Is it into the pits for him? No. He's still going. And as gaps start to form because of the strategy, we see Suzuki down in P4 with his new tyres. Pesh following Ken Cheese. And making headway at this stage of the race is not an easy feat. And as you can see, Ken Cheese just pulling away. Newer tyres reign supreme. But do they really? Who am I? On 4-lap newer tyres. Then Rory, of course, went for an earlier 2-stop. Is Rory not feeling the effects? He stays out another lap. Can he take it to the end? Because if so, it looks like it might just be his. DRS now putting in the work as Cotton closes in, but no success for him on Jack. Eliminator gets a 3-second penalty. Suzuki takes fastest lap. Of course, new tyres. Track nice and rubbered in now. Kong now getting ever so close. Going around the outside of turn 3, goes for a switchback, loses it on the brakes just a tiny bit. But as Jack takes too much curb, Kong sweeps in and takes advantage. He gets away with having DRS as well because of a well-timed move. As Hal goes off in turn 4 and drops to out of the points positions. And McLaren will not look back on that very fondly. As Dan Richards gets a 10-second penalty for ignoring a yellow flag. As Magnus Hall gets one of his own as well. It's 10 seconds on his race time, and Rory now is fighting for every moment for his tyres. You can see the graining on the front left. as Howell retires. Rory could at any moment get a puncture. We're on the penultimate lap. And there's 8.9 seconds between him and second place. You can see how slowly he's taking these corners. Doing anything he can to look after the tyres he's been given. So gentle. And onto the final lap we go. It's Rory daring to do the one stop. He stayed out as late as he could. And now, he's sacrificing so much pace just to stay alive. Kong with a 3-second penalty. While we watch Rory. So gentle in turn-ins. If you aggravate the rubber too much, there'll simply be none of it left. He's got away with Sector 1. Cops fully lifting. That front left, his only limiting factor. We watch the rubber. He's got away with Sector 2. One sector stands between him and the race win. Out of nowhere, the Ferrari entering Vale now. Tyres all but gone. Out of Vale, a slide. And there he goes. The checkered flag for Rory is the race victory. He didn't take pole. He made it count when it mattered. And who am I? Takes second place. A daring two-stop, but it didn't quite get him where he wanted to be. Suzuki takes third. Having struggled too much with the one-stop and aborting 5 laps before the end, Onions takes fourth. Kong has a penalty. So these next results are going to change. Kong goes down to P7 as Daryl takes 5th, Fade in 6th, Kong 7th, Ken Cheese in 8th, Forfeit 9th, Jack takes the final points place. He struggled the entire race, but Hoki takes 11th. We'll take a look at the rest in just a second. As there we go. It's Rory taking our race win. Fastest lap went to Suzuki. Driver of the day in most overtakes went to Daryl. And Ken Cheese got cleanest driver. Daryl going from 17th to 5th has earned his driver of the day. But Rory all the way from 4th to 1st. Incredibly done from him. And the final drivers we didn't quite see. Pesh got 12th. Eliminator 13th. Dan Richards 14th. And of course, the rest didn't quite finish. But they tried their best. It was a great race, as it always is at Silverstone. Make sure to join us on Wednesday, or in fact next Sunday, as we've got more to show you. We'll see you then.